Hi, welcome to Res and the Sienna Equilibrium 2.06 for Paul Krugman and others. Okay, so hi Paul. I'm working on the basic my spending is your income principle here to demonstrate. And we can see here we have 16 sectors, mostly manufacturing. And they all start off with $171 million. Note that this is a lot harder because there's only 16. In real life, this would be 2,000 different companies, which is much easier to transfer spending to income for many reasons. Okay, I'm just gonna carry on. Right. So, okay, my spending. We have 16 different companies who are basically spending their money on parts, goods, whatever needs to go into them making their goods mostly. I.e., here we have fashion, which goes to the USA under the AGOA agreement and is basically traded for raw materials and small parts. Those raw materials and small parts then go to Goods One, a technology manufacturing company or sector of companies, maybe 100, or maybe just a few, making just a few goods, but a lot better than everywhere else in the world. A lot of flexibility. Okay, so that's how that works. Fashion sells in the USA, buys in the USA raw materials and small parts, all trade free due to the AGOA agreement. Those raw materials and small parts are used to make technology products, virtual reality goggles, computers, tablets, etc., etc. Let's have a look at another one. Goods One Technology, in this case, again 171 million, is spent, this time AOGA countries, so they are most countries in Southern Africa apart from South Africa, but generally the neighbours of our country of prototype, Malawi. So, Malawi company spends $171 million, makes technology, sells technology to AGOA, exchanges that currency for same in raw materials and small parts, working on a comparative advantage of 0. The comparative advantage would probably get taken up by trade hubs, but I'm not going to get into that. These raw materials and small parts then go into sector Goods 6, which is parts for other goods. Okay, let's have a look at another one. Luxury items are created. Why luxury items? Well, luxury items are small and can be transported quite easily, and everybody else is doing the opposite. All developing countries are doing, and sorry, when I meant fashion, I mean high-end fashion. The idea is to have genuine Armani company, genuine Chanel, genuine, all in Malawi. And that can obviously sell for a huge amount compared to the shipping value. Luxury items again, this time sold to the USA, exchanged for Goods 6, parts for goods, which we saw up there. Your income, my spending, your income, my spending. But actually goes to sector the Gigafactory. Now that is basically a Tesla Elon Musk venture. There are now 3 of them, but Musk says there can be 100, and the idea is potentially to build one using half of all the investment money, so more than a couple of billion, just pumping out these batteries. Okay, parts for building materials. This sector has its $171 million. That this time there's no trade. That just goes directly to building materials one, who then make building materials And here we go. You see the building materials, then go to the property developer. Okay, you've got the idea where my spending is your spending. Okay, but we've got to go down and have a look. Look here. What's going on here? Government, labour, and loan interest sectors, all paid in network credits that must be redeemed with one or another network company or paid to a network employee. And because of that, we can constantly redirect the income. So as in the very first stage, my spending is equal to half the investment of that year, 2.748 billion, is your income for government, employees, and creditors. And you can see it adds up to the same. They're buying, they're selling. Let's see how that works. And sorry that this spreadsheet is back to front. It's just the way it works. If we look at other ones here, they work the other way. And I started from this one, and yeah, but yes, it's back to front. Okay, so let's just follow what goes on a little bit further along. So what do we got? Luxury items being produced. That's shipped over to the USA to one of potentially 10,000 virtual network trade hubs, which are then sold throughout USA. That money, whatever comparative advantage, would go to the trade hub. That money then buys parts for goods that are needed, that are shipped back to Malawi. So it's basically a straight swap. Luxury items for parts for goods with the USA. And we can use the USA, just so as you know, in case you don't, AGOA is a trade pact that the USA has created, and it allows 40 countries, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, to have free trade with the USA. No tariff trade. I'm not sure if there is a ceiling, but it's got a lot of good reports. There is the European one, everything but arms, but that has not got a lot of good reports. It's complicated. Doesn't mean we can't do it, because if you're starting from scratch, you can tailor a network, a grand network, to that goal. But in this case, what I've done is to keep it simple, and because it's probably the way it's going to go. That says there's so many variables, I really can't say that with any certainty. But certainly, if everything is either AGOA or bought from the USA, there are no rules of origin problems. Okay, so anyway, where were we? Let's say luxury items made in Malawi, shipped to the USA, shipped out to the trade hubs, or just distributed to where the trade hubs sell to, more likely. And in exchange is bought goods, parts for goods, goods 6, parts for goods. This goes to the gigafactory, and we can see, if we go down here, that just circles around, it circles around. But let's have a look at what happens now. Right, now what we do is we deduct the money for loan, 6.25%. There's an argument that could be twice as much, but the general idea is that 6.25% is just from what's called the one price system. This is the one price system. It's a very efficient one price system, unlike the Chinese one price system. But there is a two price system, and that's when these are all tender orders. This will all have been planned out long before. So there's no setting, changing prices. Everything's planned and it's done. It's 5 years of working on the software to do that, and this time period is 2024. But yeah, all of this is generally fixed. But of course, if any of these companies can sell extra in trade, can sell extra to outside network Malawi, can aid can cut. There's many other ways to do sales, and that would be at a second price. That would be at a market price, whatever, you know, the efficient market hypothesis, I suppose. Yeah. So importance is for the loan 6.25% coming from the tender, and then there can be more coming from the second price, the second price, the free market price for selling stuff above and beyond what the tender was necessary. I hope that's not too complicated. Okay, so let's just refocus. So loan is 21 million paid to creditors. Labour is 85 million, and tax is 64 million. Okay, 18.75%. Labour is 25%. I know that's quite high, but that's including welfare. So, you know, if there's sort of 10%, the general idea for this first phase, the first year, is to make no profit. And considering when I first did this, the idea was to make profit, it's quite happy to put that 10% of what profit would have been, add that to Labour, and then let Labour create welfare for it. It's you could even class it as government spending, so that would change government spending to 25% or even higher, which is fine. It's a good amount of money, but it's nothing compared to what happens when we spin more than once. This is just the spin zero example. Right, okay, so if we go down here, we now see how that works. That's the total tax, 1 billion, and that's divided into 3. Of course, it would be divided into many, many more. I'm just, you know, for the sake of making it simple, we're really just putting things in broad categories. Okay, so, and then from Labour, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a loan repayment, 1. And note this is double what the ones are above. You know, by fairly, I should have done 16 sectors down here, but I haven't. I've done 8 with twice as much money. So there you go. That is what, because this is, you know, obviously what would need to be spent. You know, government tax, one would pay. You know, this is all taxes, everything. Payroll tax, property sales tax, every tax there is. There's just one payment for it all, and that is paid in network credits. That needs to be spent within a certain time period. In this case, a year. Right. Okay. So there we go. That's where that money has, how that distribution has come, and we get back to where we were. My spending is your income, but if we look at it, it's my spending on parts and materials. 50% of my spending is buying the things that will go into making other things. Then that becomes your income, and then it goes through there, and we take half of it off for tax, labour, and repayment of loan. It's not actually repayment of loan, it's repayment of interest on loan. There is no repayment of the actual loan because that has built companies. Not going to get into that now. Okay, so there we go. Let's just have a look at that again. My spending, 50% is their income. So 50% of my spending is their income. And then 50% more of my spending becomes their income. Okay, we can continue further. Let's have a quick look at this spending down here. It's quite important, I suppose. Remember, this is, you know, very broad strokes. Okay, government 911 internet access, that is critical for the education of the future workers, and is a Mark Zuckerberg project. It's a project that its name came from Mark Zuckerberg, with an interview I saw with him. Infrastructure, and you know, as years go by, you see that I haven't actually put much health in, or any. That's sort of working on the principle that aid can sit on top of what we're doing for the first couple of years. You know, it's all about getting that manufacturing base spinning, and then from there you add the services, and then from there, you know, healthcare, etc., can come through. Look, I'm not saying this is how it's going to be. It's just the way I've written it for now. Okay, government, infrastructure. Okay, that's an important one. And this is government. Actually, it should be various, but various goods, cars, and fashion. Helps, of course, helps making the market, because that's got to be spent by some politician or another, or on middle government, or could be seen as a bribe. But I think government employees should be paid more, certainly in the UK, because I don't think we're getting the cream of the crop, and I think the government is so important that they should be fairly rewarded. Certainly their income should be the same as a top banker, and by there's no it could be seen as a bribe, could also be seen as in reply to the books I've read, Paul Collier's Bottom Billion, Poor Economics, I can't remember them all off the top of my head. So, okay, yeah, so that could be that. It's basically a bribe. It's basically a bribe. So as everybody in the political arena thinks this is a good idea, and because they're making so much money out of this, there's no need for corruption, because there's a load of corruption checks. There's banker software and many different actual forms of software that will stop corruption, and the UCS Observer basically just reports on everything. So as there's no everything, everybody knows, okay, that cost that amount, where's that money gone? There's none of that. There's no where's that money gone. Everything is recorded. Okay, so what have we got here? Labour paid in credits. This is welfare, food and drink. So that's luxury goods made, sold to people in Malawi, companies in Malawi, who exchange it for food and drink. That can really be done at a local market level. Really real grassroots stuff. And that's there we see that's the labour. The idea is that the people are paid well, but either 25 and maybe even 50% of their being paid well goes back to their villages, or if their villages are already swamped with funds, they will go to other villages. But in general, best to go to villages of the people who are earning the money, because when they go back to the village, they'll be heroes, and it will encourage other people in the village to get people working in S-World, etc, etc, etc. Okay, real estate. This has been since 2012, and the American Butterfly Orlando Grand Network project, Charter City, and that was that Labour have a 16-year contract. At the end of the contract, they own their own house, and each year their deduction goes for it. It's and of course this helps boost the property developers, because there's guaranteed income. We know, and we even know exactly how much. We can say there's 343 million going to be spent by various Malawi S-World employees on property, and there's that's that. There's no debate about it. That's going to happen. Well, sorry, we haven't looked at E yet. We'll look at that in a little while. Okay, so what have we got there? Luxury goods being sold there. Various goods, cars and fashion. Basically given again to the people in the villages to sell and exchange for food and drink. It's similar to this, it's just a different way of doing it. One is sort of officially traded, and then food and drink is dispersed. The other is informally traded. Basically a lady in one of the villages will get a colour TV, presuming there's oil electricity there, and they'll sell that luxury TV to in the local market for food and stuff. Okay. S World FC Education. Okay, and now this is again. I haven't actually allowed any. I should certainly allow 5% of Labour to spend on whatever they want, as long as it's S World. I haven't actually done that here, but imagine that I have. This one is S World FC. The idea being that we want to create 256 small networks that have solar power, and that starts the the education system, because from there that solar power can be put into batteries and run out to the surrounding villages. And but to start it all off, you know, everyone, I don't know, but I think the best way to start it all off is to start it off next year, 2019, by creating the foundation so that in 2020 we have 256 football clubs. Therefore, they get money for, i.e., they get the parts of this, and that's a good way to. That's a good way. I know it sounds ridiculous, but if you think it through, you're getting the fittest, the strongest in the village. You're creating a very village-orientated team event. And of course, you know, if you win the football game, you get more. If you lose the football game, your neighbours gets more. So it's a great way. And also, people in Malawi love football, and it's a great equaliser. I remember playing with Max, one of my favourite house manager, and he was on Clifton Beach. It was fantastic, but he just ran rings around us. It was the day Max roared, the most nicest guy you'll ever meet in your life, and he's just ran rings around. He was a complete demon with a football. It was ridiculous. So yeah, okay. The idea that this 256 PowerPoints starts off with a football club, doesn't cost a lot of money, just some salaries, and that develops, you know, from there you can develop a little bit of a health thing going on, then you can certainly develop education as soon as the power's there. And there's sort of informal stores where maybe this food and drink would be sold and exchanged for luxury goods. And luxury goods, people are going to buy them best off to help make them cheaper, so as they buy them, they got more room for food. Okay. But yeah, those luxury goods, etc., could then start being sold collectively from a shop near a part of the, you know, and it will grow from there. Okay, it doesn't have to be that way. You know, this is really a Richard H. Failer thing, and you know, if he goes, yeah, shit, that's awesome, then we'll probably stick to it. Okay. I'm not seeing solar panels. There should be solar panels somewhere. It was obviously, I've done it at a different point. Okay, look, just imagine there's solar there somewhere. Let's just say this is, let's just do that now. Just solar. And yeah, okay, there we go. Of course, there can be solar up here as well. People can make solar and sell electricity. It doesn't have to be a government expense, albeit it's not a government expense. It's just they've got credits and they can spend it on, you know. Okay, right. I think we're just going to now go to the left and just see a little bit more. This is just how it flips back again. So there we have my spending. This is just your income. Property developer 2. Your income. Then this should stick to be, I've done this wrong, I think. Yeah, that's better, I think. Yeah, so there we go. That's the this is the switch. This is the end of the year. Okay, with the idea of res, we're not using the S. It's RE actually at the moment. It's just revenue times efficiency. the idea is that we could add spin, and we can spin this round a number of times in a year, between 1 and potentially up to 24. I have got a model that does it. Okay, so yeah, so that's your income. Buys in 2024 has bought building materials. Your income, it's those building materials again. Now this is in 2025, and later in 2025 that is bought by Infrastructure City, and it just goes round and round. And we can see at the bottom there we've got Labour 1, 2, 3, 4, Government 1, 2, 3, and 2 sets of investors this time. This is actually all going in the reverse way to the way I originally did it, but it makes more sense this way. Okay, so there we go. Your income, my spending. And the point of this is that all of the income that we started with, the 2.7 billion in spending on things that make things, parts for other parts for manufactured goods, building materials for real estate developers or infrastructure, etc., etc. That starts with 2.7, and there's also the 2.7 here. Sorry, 2.7 starts there. No, I think I'm a little bit. Yeah, no, yeah. That 2.47 is spent on parts. Then it's this 2.47, this lot here, which ends up at 2.7, is spent there and comes in there, and this all takes a year. So at the second year, all the money has stayed in the system, because all the money has gone to one or another company in the system, or Labour, who have then bought something from a company. And all of that initial revenue, that 5.5 billion, is now still at one or another company at the beginning of the next year. That money's still there. And so and so. And now let's change things slightly. We're going to change to an E of 95%. In fact, we're not going to do it here. We're going to do it here. Okay, if we start at the beginning. Okay, now we see what's happened. That changes there. Not sure how I can change it over here. Oh, yeah, no, there we go. Okay, that just changes that. Right, okay, so there we go. That's what happens if only 95% of the initial revenue, the starting funding, is spent to one or another company. What happens then is, instead of it rolling over this figure here, 5.47, let's just bring that here. And if we take that and minus that, that means the price one base system would have $274 million less in the year next year, but We need to include aid, which could easily be over $1 billion. We need to include any extra sales we can make to the USA, because we can sell as much as we want, as far as I can tell from the agreement. Extra sales to AGOA companies. There are real estate sales that can be made. There are network cities where some company, maybe organisation like the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, comes along and makes a 10-year commitment at about 1.3 billion to build themselves their own charter city with some of these companies operating within it. There are an awful lot of ways to make an awful lot of money, and yet anything over 274 million is a plus. And there's no way it's not going to make. Aid would cover dwarf that, the amount of aid that could come in with, you know, some professional people, top of my list, Barack Obama, lobbying for aid, because this is a much more efficient way to spend aid. That 95% efficiency means that we know at least where 95% of the aid is going to go, and it's going to be there, and it's going to be pinpoint accurate. Plus there's the other measures. You know, the chances of if this is working, this is going to be big news. There's many companies or funds would I think jump at the chance of becoming, you know. Then there's the extra trade to the USA. So if you were talking about goods from Malawi that have this story, that have the Chanel name on it, maybe it's called Chanel Malawi. you could sell a lot of that stuff, especially if you spread it across all the brands. You get my point. The point is, and I call this the law of conservation of revenue. The law of conservation of revenue, based on the law of conservation of energy, which says energy must always be conserved, is this. When it's at 100, it is a pure conservation of revenue. Whatever revenue the network has 1 year goes through the system. Half of it buys materials that get made into goods. The other half of it goes to labour, the government, and loan repayment. And that all gets directed to buy the goods that are being made. And it just spins around and around. But 100% E is very, very difficult. 95% E is very, very difficult. 90% E is rocket science. In that, that's what Elon Musk does at SpaceX, and that's what Richard Branson does at Virgin Orbit. They have an effective 90% E. Imagine all of these different sectors are actually one company, and they're all buying from each other, and 90% of the time they can find what they want in-house, and they only go outside 10%. So at 90% E is certainly achievable. Okay, and each year carried over is just under 5 billion. Now what happens the next year, let's say conservatively that from all of the different ways to make money above and beyond the tender system that we're seeing, the one price system, when we go to the two price system, the open market, say we got 2 billion. Okay? That then adds to this as more additional revenue. I'm going to make it simpler. No, let's keep it at that. Let's see, equals 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's difficult to do. Look, you can see If you add that and that, that means the next year's initial revenue's gonna be that plus that minus that. And whatever you add will continue to add. So if you make an extra 5 billion, you add an extra 5 billion to what you've already rolling over from the year before. And you can see how that can, without any spins. Sorry, this isn't spin 2. This is initial revenue. Okay, well, I think now's the time to say let's potentially carry this on the free spin model here. Version 2.05, and there is already a video that I've made for this, and a write-up as well. Afterwards, if we go further down the chapter, the res equation chapter, we will look at an even older model of between 8 and 24 spins, which gets a little bit crazy. Before looking at the end of the chapter at how this came about in 2012 and how it's linked to various principles in physics. Okay. Thanks for if you're hearing me thanking you now, thank you for getting through this. Thank you for watching. It's 36 minutes. It's quite a bit of time. Thank you. Okay, let's go.